My name is Melissa. Standing in the family home that I've just bought back, I look around at the familiar yet now strangely foreign surroundings. The walls that once held so many memories of sacrifices and family obligations now stand as a symbol of a new beginning. It's hard to believe how far I've come from the woman who was once trapped by the expectations of her family. I remember the day the court ruled in my favor. It was like a floodgate opened, and my father's carefully constructed world of lies and manipulation began to unravel. His business was on the brink of collapse, and creditors were knocking on his door. The mechanic shop that was supposed to be the family's lifeline was falling apart, a victim of his financial mismanagement. I watched it all from a distance, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. But let me rewind a bit. I grew up in a small town with my parents and my older brother, Jake. My father, Henry, was a charming but irresponsible man. He always presented himself as a loving family man, but in reality, he was more concerned with his own business ventures and personal gain. My mother, Grace, was a kind and gentle woman who always tried to keep the family together, but she was often overshadowed by my father's domineering personality. For years, I worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I paid the bills, supported my family, and never complained. I believed that one day, all my hard work would pay off. And then, it did. I received an email from a prestigious investment firm, offering me a position with a salary of $500,000 a year. It was a dream come true. I was overjoyed and couldn't wait to share the news with my family. I called my father first, thinking he would be proud of me. But instead, his response was like a punch in the gut. "That's great, Melissa," he said, his voice steady. "But now you have to help us. 50% of your salary for the family and 30% for your brother's mechanic shop. No excuses." I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the man who had always told me to keep pushing, to never give up. And now, he was asking me to give away most of my hard-earned money. I tried to explain to him that I needed to take care of myself, that I had finally achieved my dream. But he wouldn't listen. "We raised you, Melissa. You owe us," he said, his tone of authority never faltering. In the following days, the demands kept coming. My mother would call, asking when I could send the next payment for the utility bills. Jake would casually mention how his shop was struggling, as if it was a given that I would help. I tried to brush it off, but every conversation chipped away at my resolve. One evening, Jake called, his voice full of pleading. "Sis, I'm in a tight spot. The shop's not doing well, and I'm behind on a few bills. Can you help out just for a little while?" He didn't even hesitate to mention the sum he expected me to cover. That was the final straw. I realized that I had been enabling their dependence on me, and I was losing myself in the process. That night, I packed my things and left my tiny apartment. It was a difficult decision, but I knew I had to reclaim control of my life. The first few days were a breath of fresh air. I had my full salary to myself, and I could finally do the things I had always wanted. I went to nice restaurants, bought new clothes, and joined a gym. But the freedom didn't last long. My father started sending me guilt-tripping texts and making endless calls. "We've always been here for you. Why can't you help us now?" he would say. Jake called me selfish, and my mother wrote that I was abandoning the family. The guilt ate away at me, but I knew I couldn't go back. Then, a week after I stopped paying the bills, I received a legal letter. My father was suing me for filial abandonment, claiming that I had neglected my family's needs. I was in disbelief. This was a man who had spent his life avoiding responsibility, and now he was trying to make me pay for his and the family's failures. I knew I couldn't face this alone, so I reached out to a family law attorney named Lily. She listened to my story and told me that there was more to it than just family dynamics. "Your father's claims are financial," she said. "We need to dig deeper into his financial history." With Lily's help, we started to uncover the truth. We found hidden assets, money that had been moved between accounts without my knowledge, and debts that he had never disclosed. It became clear that my father had been manipulating not just me, but the entire family for years. One day, we found a dusty yellowed envelope in my mother's old filing cabinet. It was labeled Trust Fund Medical Expenses. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. Inside was a document detailing a trust fund of $250,000 that my grandmother had set up for my mother to cover her medical costs after her cancer diagnosis. But my father had signed a document dissolving the trust just 3 days after my mother's funeral, and the money had disappeared. I was furious. All these years, I had been working myself to the bone, paying off debts, thinking I was helping my family. But in reality, my father had been using the money for his own business ventures while we struggled. I felt betrayed and nauseous. I knew I couldn't let him get away with this. I called Lily the next morning and told her that I was counter-suing. This isn't just about the trust fund. It's about everything he's done to us, I said, my voice steady but resolute. With Lily's guidance, I hired a lawyer named Ava who specialized in fraud and embezzlement cases. She immediately started gathering evidence, and as we sifted through the records, more skeletons fell out of the closet. My mother's old attorney, Tom, had kept a detailed log of her affairs and agreed to help us. We discovered that my father had made multiple fraudulent transfers, funneling money from accounts that should have been used for our family's well-being. There were unpaid debts from years ago that he had ignored, all while presenting himself as a responsible patriarch. The power was finally shifting back into my hands. I realized how much control he had taken from me, but now I was reclaiming it. When the court ruled in my favor, I felt a sense of justice. My father's business collapsed, and he was left with nothing but his shame. At work, I received the promotion I had always dreamed of. I was recognized for my hard work and integrity, and my salary increased. My office became my sanctuary, a place where I could finally breathe free from the constant weight of my family's expectations. But watching my father's downfall and the collapse of the family I had once tried so hard to protect was harder than I had imagined. The truth had come out, and with it, everything I had once known about them crumbled. I used the $250,000 from the trust fund to buy back the family home from foreclosure. It wasn't just about the property, it was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine and my mother's. When I served the eviction notice to my father and Jake, I felt no satisfaction or guilt. I just felt a sense of closure. I decided to rent the house to a young couple with a child on the way. They were full of hope and excitement, and I could sense that they would build a real home there. As I handed over the keys, I felt a sense of peace. My mother's legacy, once tainted by my father's greed, was finally free. I had learned the hard way to live for myself, to take control of my own destiny. The pain of the